Have you ever wondered if the voice in your head is truly yours? What if everything you believe yourself to be is just an illusion? Join me on this journey to discover the true nature of your consciousness and unveil who you really are. Since we can remember, we have identified with that internal voice that narrates our lives. We believe we are our thoughts, our stories, our emotions. But what if all of that is just a construct? In this video, we will explore the true nature of consciousness and identity and reveal what we truly are beyond the internal dialogue. Since childhood, we develop an internal voice that accompanies us constantly. It's that voice that comments, judges, and analyzes every experience we go through. It speaks to us in a familiar tone, as if it were a part of ourselves. But have you ever stopped to think who that narrator really is? Is it truly you? This internal narrator, also known as inner monologue, is a fundamental feature of human consciousness. It allows us to reflect on our actions, plan for the future, and process our emotions. However, it's essential to recognize that this internal dialogue is not our essence. It's a tool we use to interact with the world and with ourselves. By closely observing this narrator, we can realize that it doesn't always reflect our true nature. Often, it's influenced by limiting beliefs, fears, and social conditioning that we've acquired throughout our lives. For example, we may have self-critical thoughts telling us we're not good enough or that we don't deserve success. These thoughts are not absolute truths. They are mental constructs that we can question and transform. By questioning the authenticity of this narrator, we begin to disidentify from it. We realize that we are not our thoughts or our emotions. We are the consciousness that observes them. This realization allows us to live more authentically, freeing ourselves from the limitations imposed by the internal dialogue. Since birth, we identify with an entity called I. We believe we are a unique person, with our own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. However, various philosophical and scientific traditions suggest that this perception of the self is an illusion. Psychology and philosophy have deeply explored the nature of the self. Some approaches suggest that the self is a mental construct that emerges from the interaction between our experiences, thoughts, and emotions. This construct gives us a sense of identity and continuity over time. However, this perception can be misleading, as the self is not a fixed entity, but a dynamic process in constant flux. Buddhism offers a particular view on the self. According to this tradition, the self is merely a convention, a label we assign to a collection of experiences and perceptions. There is no permanent or unchanging self. Everything is in constant flux. This understanding can lead to greater inner peace, freeing us from the need to cling to a fixed identity. From a scientific perspective, neuroscience studies have shown that the self doesn't reside in a specific part of the brain. There is no center of the self where our conscious experiences originate. Instead, the sense of a coherent self is the result of the integration of multiple brain processes that create a continuous narrative of our experience. This integration gives us the illusion of being a unified entity when, in reality, we are a collection of interconnected processes. Recognizing that the self is an illusion can have profound implications for our daily lives. By understanding that our identity is not fixed, we can free ourselves from self-imposed limitations and social expectations. This allows us to live more authentically without the burden of maintaining a constant image of ourselves. Moreover, by letting go of identification with the self, we can experience a deeper connection with others and the world around us, recognizing that we all share a common human experience. In summary, the perception of the self as a fixed and separate entity is an illusion. By exploring and understanding this illusion, we can achieve a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world, leading to a more fulfilling and conscious life. Imagine for a moment that you are in a quiet place, sitting comfortably with your eyes closed. You breathe deeply, inhaling and exhaling calmly. Now direct your attention to the flow of thoughts arising in your mind. Observe how they appear and disappear, like clouds drifting across the sky. At first, you might feel identified with them as if you were those thoughts. However, by maintaining your attention on them without judging or clinging to them, you begin to notice that there is a consciousness observing them. This consciousness is unaffected by the content of the thoughts. It simply watches them pass. So, if you can observe your thoughts without identifying them as you, Who are you really? This exercise is a fundamental practice in mindfulness, which invites us to witness our mind without getting involved in its narratives. By doing so, we begin to recognize that we are not our thoughts, but the consciousness observing them. This realization can be liberating, as it allows us to distance ourselves from automatic identifications and the stories our mind creates. By regularly practicing this type of observation, we develop greater mental clarity and a deeper understanding of our true nature. We realize that although thoughts come and go, the consciousness observing them remains constant. This understanding helps us live with greater presence and authenticity, freeing us from the limitations imposed by mental identifications. The identity we construct throughout our lives is based on a complex interaction of experiences, memories, and beliefs that define us as individuals. From an early age, we begin to form an image of ourselves influenced by factors such as family, culture, education, and social interactions. These influences contribute to the construction of an identity that gives us a sense of belonging and purpose. However, by delving deeper beyond these superficial layers, we face the fundamental question: who are we really? By questioning the social and personal constructs that shape our identity, we can discover deeper aspects of our being that transcend the labels and roles imposed by society. This process of self-exploration allows us to recognize that our essence is not limited by external definitions, but is a unique and dynamic expression of our human experience. A recent example that illustrates the complexity of identity and public perception is the case of Carla Sofia Gascon, an actress nominated for an Oscar for her role in Emilia Perez. Gascon has faced criticism due to past offensive messages on social media, which has led to intense scrutiny of her character and values. Despite the apologies offered and the deactivation of her X, formerly Twitter account, the controversy persists, highlighting how past actions can influence public perception and the construction of a person's identity. This case underscores the difficulty of separating personal identity from past actions and opinions, especially in the digital age, where information is easily accessible and can be used to form quick judgments. The tendency to label and categorize people into specific boxes can lead to a reductive understanding of their identity, ignoring the complexity and capacity for growth and change inherent in every human being. Moreover, victimization can turn a person into an untouchable figure, making dialogue and mutual understanding difficult. By focusing solely on individual identities and their potential transgressions, we risk losing sight of the shared humanity that unites us. It's essential to recognize that each individual is a complex being, with a unique story and the capacity to learn and evolve. Therefore, it's crucial to question the compartmentalization of identities and foster a more holistic and empathetic view of people. Maintaining respect and responsibility toward other communities involves recognizing the interconnectedness of our experiences and the importance of building bridges rather than walls. By doing so, we can promote a more inclusive and understanding society, where diversity is celebrated and differences are seen as opportunities for growth and mutual understanding. Ultimately, transcending the limitations imposed by social constructs of identity allows us to live more authentically and fully, embracing our shared humanity and recognizing the richness that the diversity of experiences and perspectives brings. Various philosophers and scientists have proposed that at the core of our being, there is a pure consciousness stripped of labels and narratives. This consciousness acts as an impartial witness to our experiences, unaffected by them. It's comparable to the sky that remains unchanged while the clouds, representing our thoughts and emotions, pass and dissipate. In Hindu philosophy, this concept is known as turiya, referring to the state of pure and transcendental consciousness. According to this tradition, turiya is the underlying basis of all states of consciousness, including deep sleep, dreaming, and wakefulness. By attaining turiya, one experiences a consciousness free from dualities and limited perceptions. On the other hand, in Edmund Husserl's phenomenological philosophy, pure consciousness is seen as the mind's capacity to intend objects, that is, to direct its attention towards something without that object being part of consciousness itself. This perspective highlights the intentionality of consciousness, suggesting that we are always conscious of something, but that consciousness itself is a separate and pure entity. From a scientific perspective, pure consciousness has been addressed in cognitive neuroscience studies. Research has attempted to identify the neural basis of consciousness, distinguishing between conscious and unconscious processes. However, the exact nature of consciousness remains a mystery, and some scientists suggest that pure consciousness could be an emergent property of the brain that cannot be reduced to specific physical components. By contemplating pure consciousness, we realize that we are more than our thoughts and emotions. We are the consciousness itself that observes and experiences, a constant and timeless presence that transcends the fluctuations of the mind. Recognizing this truth allows us to free ourselves from self-imposed limitations and live with greater authenticity and inner peace. The ego is that part of us that identifies with the internal narrative. It seeks security and validation and fears the unknown. But by clinging to the ego, we limit our true nature. By letting go of that identification, we can experience profound freedom and peace. The ego, in its essence, is a mental construct that provides us with a sense of identity and continuity. It's the internal voice that constantly evaluates, judges, and categorizes our experiences, creating a personal story that defines us. This internal narrative gives us the illusion of being separate and distinct individuals, reinforcing the belief that we are our thoughts, emotions, and memories. However, this identification with the ego can be limiting. By clinging to this mental construct, we become trapped in a cycle of unfulfilled desires, unfounded fears, and internal conflicts. The ego constantly seeks external validation and fears criticism or rejection, leading us to act from a place of insecurity and defensiveness. This constant need for approval and fear of judgment prevents us from living authentically and fully. By letting go of identification with the ego, we begin to experience profound freedom and peace. By recognizing that we are not our thoughts or emotions, we can observe them without identifying with them. This conscious observation allows us to see things as they are without the distortion imposed by the ego. By freeing ourselves from the limitations of the ego, we open ourselves to a richer and more authentic experience of life based on acceptance and unconditional love for ourselves and others. This process of transcending the ego doesn't mean eliminating it entirely, but recognizing it as a part of us that serves a function but doesn't define our true essence. By consciously integrating the ego, we can use its energy constructively, without letting it control or limit us. This balance allows us to live more fully, connected to our true nature and the world around us. When we stop identifying with the voice in our head, we open ourselves to the experience of the present moment. We discover that life is richer and more vibrant than our internal stories make us believe. Each moment becomes an opportunity to connect with our deepest essence. The human tendency to live trapped in memories of the past or worries about the future takes us away from the richness of the here and now. By focusing on the present, we can experience greater fulfillment and satisfaction in our lives. Living in the present involves accepting our experiences as they are, without judging them or wishing they were different. This acceptance allows us to live with greater serenity and enjoy each moment without the burden of expectations or regrets. Moreover, by focusing on the present, we can reduce stress and anxiety as we stop worrying about what we cannot control. This practice helps us live more consciously and appreciate the small wonders around us. By transcending the illusion of individuality, we recognize our intrinsic connection with everything around us. We realize that we are not separate from the world, but an expression of it. This understanding leads us to a more compassionate and harmonious life. The perception of separation is a mental construct that limits us and distances us from our true nature. By recognizing our unity with everything, we can experience greater empathy and understanding toward other beings and the environment. This awareness of unity invites us to act with greater responsibility and respect, knowing that our actions impact everything around us. It motivates us to live more sustainably and contribute to collective well-being. By integrating this vision of unity into our daily lives, we can cultivate deeper and more meaningful relationships based on love and mutual respect. This perspective helps us overcome divisions and work together for a more just and harmonious world. There are various practices that help us disidentify from the mind and reconnect with our true nature. Meditation allows us to observe our thoughts without judgment, creating a space between consciousness and the mind. Mindfulness. By focusing on the present moment, we reduce the influence of the internal narrative. Self-inquiry. Questions like, who am I? Lead us to delve deeper into our true identity. Many people have experienced profound transformation by recognizing the illusion of the self. They have found a peace and clarity that was previously elusive, living more authentic and fulfilling lives. By questioning the voice in our head and exploring beyond our internal narratives, we discover that we are much more than our thoughts and emotions. We are the pure consciousness that observes, the space in which all experience occurs. By recognizing this, we free ourselves from self-imposed limitations and embrace our true essence. If this video has resonated with you, I invite you to delve deeper into your own experience. Observe your thoughts, question your beliefs, and explore who you really are beyond the mind. Share your reflections in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more content that inspires you to discover your true nature.